And now Kyle Larson, after Kansas, by 1/1000th of a fucking second, wins his second race and still comes in at number one in the power rankings, which I think is deserving. Like I told you, Wes, I know we talked about it on this pod. Once Kyle Larson finishes those races, I'll give him the number one spot, and it didn't take long. I think he does deserve that spot. All right, welcome back to your favorite couch potatoes, a special Your Redneck Boys edition. All right, now we do apologize. We missed last week. I know, Wesley. I know the Fords won last week, but you can't depend on those Fords all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
And that might have
especially
caused
my
a
fucking
couple of
Ford.
problems.
Especially my fucking Ford.
But maybe Ford turns it around. We'll get into it a little bit later. But we're glad to be back. Your Redneck Boys are back. And let's get into some NASCAR news. To start off, NASCAR debuts an in-season tournament. Now, the first like league that we've ever seen do this is the NBA last season, where they had a middle of the season tournament. They crowned a champion and everything. So NASCAR is doing their own version of that. And what will happen is it includes 32 drivers, 5 races, and then one winner that's going to win $1 million. So there will be seeding races that happen on Prime Video, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and that'll determine the seeding by best finish over those 3 races.
hmm
And there will be tiebreakers by like best finish, season points, and all that. But round one of that tournament will start on TNT, which another little bit of a teaser there. Um, will end up happening on next NASCAR season. So it'll be like a bracket style competition. So, like I said, 32 drivers. So it's almost, 1 versus 32, 2 versus 31 or whatever. And it'll go down into, we'll have 3 seeding races. And then after those, we'll have 5 races where we'll decide like the champion of the in season tournament. So, my question is, does this bring any more attention to NASCAR? I feel like that's what we want, right? We want more attention. We want more viewership. So, is this a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm honestly because I don't know how this would like work well with the NASCAR season because I can see why the NBA would do it because it's an 82 game season. There's like nobody really pays attention too close to their season, especially towards the middle. Um, but I mean,
Yeah.
us as NASCAR fans, I mean, we pay attention to exactly what happens almost every week. And just because
Yep.
there's one race every week. Now with basketball, obviously there's
One winner.
multiple,
Yeah.
yeah, and with basketball there's multiple games across the week. Multiple teams will play multiple times during the week, stuff like that. So I think it's just a way for the NBA to keep the in season, um, you know, kind of more in tune and get more viewership. I don't see how this is going to work with NASCAR. I mean, that might be cool, but I just feel like I don't think it'll help NASCAR any, in my opinion.
Oh, really?
I just
Well,
don't see
why do you feel that way?
I just don't see the viewership growing because of this. I mean, maybe like fans would like to watch it, but I mean, I feel like everybody's already competing for a playoff spot as soon as we start the season. So I don't see the need in having something in the middle of the season where you're trying to create more hype for around NASCAR when, I mean, there's already hype week one of everybody already trying to make the
That's a good
playoffs.
point. Yeah.
So
As soon as you get that win, right? Like Daniel Suarez, for example, like he got that win. What was it? Week 3 of the season, week 2,
yeah,
at Atlanta, and
yeah,
he's locked into the playoffs essentially, right? And
hmm
that relieves all that pressure. So I think I see what you're saying. But I don't know. I don't know if it deters from like the Hendrick and Gibbs dominance that we've been talking about all season, where maybe someone can slip into that in-season tournament and kind of ruffle some feathers, ruffle some interest. But I think I see what you're saying, where it's already so week to week. Like I know me and you, as Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain fans, are still waiting for that win, waiting for that,
yeah.
signature weekend that establishes our guy into the playoffs. So I think I see what you're saying about that. So we'll have to see. It's definitely a, broadcasting kind of trying like to gain viewership kind of tactic by
Yeah.
NASCAR, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So,
I just don't see how it
well,
changes anything about the season. You know what I mean? I don't see how it can change anything about the season. I
yeah.
mean, the drivers are still going to fight for a playoff spot, and that's obviously their number one goal. I don't think that the in-season tournament will change anything.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some other NASCAR news. I can tell you, I had no idea, and I would not have predicted this happening. But good old Michael McDowell, the driver of the number 34 yellow Loves Ford,
Yep.
is leaving Front Row Motorsports after this season. And he's going to join Spire Motorsports in that 71 car, who Zane Smith has been driving. And I know Spire's been making like some moves. I know they bought KBM, Kyle Busch Motorsports, their Truck Series team, but like Corey LaJoy is a part of the Spire Motorsports team. Carson Hocevar, I know he was a Ross Chastain teammate in the Truck Series. I don't understand this move by Michael McDowell. I feel like he had a good good ride, good car. He had very strong speed at super speedways. He had very strong speed at road courses. I don't know. Do you like this move to Spire Motorsports, or do you think Michael's making a mistake?
I mean, who does Michael have as for teammates at front row? Do you
Just
know?
Zane's or Todd Gilliland. Sorry, Todd Gilliland
Todd
in the
Gilliland.
38 car.
Because I mean,
Yeah,
the only reason why I can see him making this move is to become the head guy of the team. You know what I mean? Like a Kyle Larson or like a Ross Chastain. You know, being that guy that the club pushes 100%. You know what I mean? Pushes their car. You know, because I always say every week that I think that
yeah,
there's always one guy in the team that always seems like they get the best sponsor and the best ride every week. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, moving from Front Row Motorsports to Spire, there's no change in that for Michael McDowell, so I just don't see why you would want to make that move unless Spire's getting,
More, more money.
yeah, Spire's going to get more money or they're going to get better sponsors, something like that. You know what I mean? That's the only reason why I could see him moving to that new team.
Well, hopefully it works out for him. I'm sure he didn't make the move to, like without any like thought in mind. So I'm a fan of Michael McDowell. I've never like hated him or anything. I think he's a good race car driver. So hopefully it's a good move for him. But let's move on to some other NASCAR news. Some big NASCAR news. Dale Earnhardt Jr. making yet another switch. He's leaving NBC after 6 seasons in the booth, and he's going to be in both TNT and Amazon in their broadcast booths.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I liked Aaron Hart too much in with what was it, NBC? Is that what you just said? Um,
Yeah, NBC. Yeah.
just because I feel like Fox and NBC could do so much fucking better with their broadcasting of NASCAR as a whole. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, maybe we'll have to see what happens with Amazon and TNT, because it's something different. So maybe we'll see a better side of broadcasting from NASCAR um, with these two new broadcast booths coming up, and then having Aaron Hart as the leader of those booths. Maybe we'll see, maybe we'll just see better broadcasting as a whole. You know what I mean?
Right. I feel like NASCAR fans deserve that because I know I've been a big component of hating Mike Joy, and
Yeah,
I also don't like the NBC booth. Like, and Kevin Harvick, I love Kevin Harvick, but I know we've seen so many of his broadcasts where he's trying to like gain the, I don't know, next generation or whatever. Like he's trying to bring them into it, and so he says stuff like woke or what the hell ever. Like he tries to say all these new terms to try and it just sounds so unnatural, so forced.
yeah,
And there just really hasn't been a good like broadcast since like the good old days. Daryl Waltrip, Harry McReynolds, dare I say Mike Joy, but it's I feel like NASCAR's just had not a good broadcast booth for a long time, like a clear cut broadcast booth that is really delivering, like all three guys,
yeah. No,
So
yeah, maybe. Hopefully, we can see an improvement with the broadcasting side with TNT and Amazon coming into it. So,
yeah, and
um,
yeah, and hopefully that steps up the game with NBC and Fox,
yeah,
right? Like
I mean,
hopefully it increases the pressure.
a little bit more competitive market now, and yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
so I mean, talking about them, the schedule for next season and the races that they're going to cover. We've got Fox with the first 12 races, plus the Clash and the All-Star race. Um, and then we've got,
You got
and then
it.
we've got Amazon Prime from weeks 13 through 17, and then TNT 18 through 22, and then NBC for the last 14. So, I mean, it's a good mix. We right in the middle of the season we get the Amazon and TNT broadcasts. Like we were
Right.
saying, hopefully we get something different, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get something
A little more
different, something
competitive
better.
because
Yeah.
I feel like NASCAR fans are not a fan of Fox or NBC at this point.
Yeah.
Like of the broadcasting. So hopefully we can get a little bit better in that.
Yeah, I hope so. But
Well,
moving
Wes,
on.
let's yeah, let's get on to it because I apologize to the fans. We missed last week, and
Yeah.
I know me and you were watching it together. Best race of the season, maybe, maybe. What do
I
you think?
I don't know. There's been a couple of good ones this year, but I mean the fucking closest finish in NASCAR history. That's gotta
Oh
be
no! Don't
that's
spoil it! Don't spoil it! Don't spoil it!
that's
Start
gotta
us
be
off.
number
Start
one.
us off in stages.
It's gotta be number one though. So
All right.
we're gonna go back to Kansas. Stage one, Ross Chastain obviously finished with number two in the poll, I believe. Um, he takes the lead after 2 laps. Christopher Bell keeps the pressure on until Kyle Larson surges through, but Chastain is able to hold Larson off. Um, After green flag pit stops, Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson have a crazy back and forth battle. And then Kyle
I think
Larson ends up, huh? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that like before we got to the first green flag pit stops, it was just back and forth, back and forth. Like there wasn't like a driver that established a 2, 3, 4 second lead. We had battles going on all race for the lead, for third and fourth place and stuff. So, and Ross Chastain was at the forefront of all of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was cool to see him battling with Christopher Bell to start the race, and then obviously obviously he battled with Larson for a little while. But Kyle Larson ended up taking the lead at lap 55. Um, I fucking hate Kyle Larson, but we know this. I say this every fucking week. I fucking hate Kyle Larson. Somehow I pick him every week in our pick'em standings, but whatever. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then Hamlin makes a strong run for the lead at the end of stage one. There was a three-car battle for the lead with 15 to go, and then Denny Hamlin ends up winning stage one. Had a good battle with Chastain towards the end of the stage. I mean, Chastain really battled that whole first stage.
Hmm.
It was fun to see him back up there after a month of kind of outside of the top 10 finishes. He had a couple in there that he had a chance to take some top fives. Obviously, some things don't go your way. But yeah, it was fun to see him up there in the top.
Yeah, and it was a really entertaining, you know, stage from the green flag until the, you know, yellow flag at the end of it. And I know we were waiting a long time because it was another rain delay race, but
Hmm.
it was honestly a great battle. And then we just jump into stage two and it just keeps going. Like there's not any break in the action. But of
Yep.
course, Chastain does what Chastain does. He runs Bell up the racetracks and then fucks up Bell and Chastain's day. At the start of just start it out. Just run him up the track just like you did in Darlington a year ago, and just fuck it all up. But
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if you really want to talk about it, I mean, him and Bell were doing the same fucking shit in stage one. Bell was doing the same thing to him, you know. So there was just a couple laps in there that Chastain couldn't hold it coming out of
just
turn four,
didn't
and
go Chastain's way.
yeah, exactly.
Right, right. But moving on into stage two, like we're racing some laps, but then we go in for green flag pit stops, and God, I swear this guy. Maybe I've been too harsh on Kyle Larson and not his pit crew, but because we're in stage two and Kyle Larson, is starting to dominate the race, but then his pit crew has a bad pit stop during the green flag pit stops in stage two, and he gets shuffled back. Meanwhile, the other Kyle
Mm,
Busch, has a good
mm-hmm.
pit stop in the stage two, makes his way forward, and then a guy we haven't really been talking about, Chris Buescher, ends up winning stage two. But
Yeah.
then we go into stage two pit stops, and his pit crew is over the wall too soon. And they leave a wrap on his car, like the windshield wrap, gets
Yep.
stuck on the hood or roof of his
The
car.
roof. Yep.
And yeah, Fox is all concerned about that making a big deal of, you know, his pit stops. And of course, Fox fucks it up, and it's not that big of a deal. But, anyways, Chris Buescher ends up winning stage two, and maybe he has a, pretty strong race going forward. But he ends up winning stage two. We have our pit stops. We move on to stage three. Um, and then, of course, it wouldn't be a Fox nationally televised race if it wasn't for Fox fucking up everything on their broadcasting angles, and they're so they don't even show a good angle of the first caution in stage three because that's
Yeah.
what Fox does, right? So, But what happened was Denny Hamlin, he ran Cindric kind of into the wall. He got loose, and that collected McDowell and Wallace. So that was like the first caution of stage three. And then shout out our boy TJ because, gosh, it's one of the most fun moments of our NASCAR experiences is Logano spinning through the infield. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? So he does that during green flag pit stops, which kind of F's everything up. And then, we're going back into stage three, right? Everything's going good. Kyle Busch in the top five, looking good. All of a sudden, Kyle Busch fucking spins out all on his own. Race is just over, obviously
Yeah.
for me, but basically everybody. So, because obviously, if it's over for Kyle Busch, it's over for everybody. But
Yeah.
so it is a green white checkered, and I know you had some opinions about this, Wes. Um, Martin. So we have a green white checkered. So everybody has to come down for tires. Almost everybody takes two tires.
Yep.
Martin Truex takes four. What do you think
Yep.
about that decision?
Well, I fucking hated it. Um, and I voiced my opinions pretty well when that happened because Kansas week I had Truex in my pick'ems. He was right fucking there to winning that goddamn race. Like he was this fucking close. And he had the strongest car coming into that. He was making up time. I think was it on Larson? It was on Larson, right? He was making up time on Larson and like fast
Wait, wait,
too.
wait. Beer crack
Um,
wouldn't be NASCAR without beer crack. Anyways,
um, but yeah, no, I mean, he was making up a lot of time on Larson and fuck, man, they go in for those pit stops and I don't know why he's the only guy in the top five that took four tires. Like, I just don't understand the strategy there. I mean, what
I
we were going into a green white checkered? Is that what it was? Or was it the last five laps, I
yeah,
believe? Yeah. I don't know.
green white
It's
checkered.
just didn't make sense to me on why you take four tires on a green white checkered when your car was so damn strong coming into it, you know? Um, yeah,
Well,
just
Wes,
pissed me off.
let me throw you back to the first NASCAR race that that you watched in person.
Yeah.
When a Mr. Kyle Busch was leading the race with 3 laps to go, and there was a caution thrown, and he took four tires, and the three guys ahead of him took two. I just don't get it. Take the track position. I feel like we've been known this about NASCAR. Take the fucking track position. There is
Yeah,
no
especially
reason
with
to
these
take
new
four
cars.
tires in that instance,
Yeah.
right? So Truex ends up getting fucked out of that situation, but not NASCAR fans, because guess what NASCAR fans get to witness? The closest finish in NASCAR history. 1/1000th of a second. I
Hmm.
mean, everybody thought that Chris Buescher won that race. But
Yep.
somehow, some way, Kyle Larson had one fucking thousandth of a second on that guy.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of pictures, and that finish line was a little faded. There was a little faded line.
Yep, that's been yeah, yep.
And I've been seeing a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people get upset about it. With that little faded line on the finish line, that basically gave Kyle Larson that 1/1000th of a second to get Busher. You know what I mean? Like that that gave him the win was that little faded little line on the fucking finish line. And I mean, it's insane that that's what it came down to. It's insane that that's what it came down to,
Right.
though. Definitely one of the best NASCAR races I've watched since I've been a fan. So,
Especially this season. I mean, it was competitive from start to finish. Like we had battles going on through the whole thing, and well, that finish was awesome. And I don't know, you give it one or two more laps, Chase Elliott, even Martin Truex Jr., who we were trashing on for taking four tires, those two were coming back through. They were a car length away from winning that race as well. And I don't know, it was just a really great like really great, exciting race that had a lot of battles. And before we finish out this race, I would be remiss if I didn't mention how awesome Kyle Busch was in this race because fucking he killed it, obviously. But no, in in reality, so he was actually the reason for the caution that set up the green white checkered finish.
hmm
So he started in the 20th position in the last restart, and he
yeah,
made it from 20th to 8th in two laps. And I think that's just a testament to what Kyle Busch can fucking do, baby. That's KFB right
not
there.
on, not the guy that's on the freshest tires. Coming into the last three
No,
laps,
no,
not
that's just KFB.
not racing against the chumps in the back.
Don't TJ my ass and no, he's racing 18-year-olds. But let let's finish off with our Kansas picks. Wesley, by 1/1000th of a second, you get 5 points because you picked Kyle Larson
Yep,
for
yep.
Kansas a couple weeks ago. So you get the points, and you picked Martin Truex, so you would have had that too. I picked Reddick, Hamlin, and Byron, and then TJ picked Joey Logano, Bell, and Ryan Blaney. So you get the 5 points, I get 3 points, TJ gets one. Now let's move on to good old throwback Darlington because obviously that's always a freaking awesome race. And I know you've been talking about it for a couple of weeks because we're all glad to see it. Eric Jones, he made his return to the Cup Series and he finally got back in the Cup Series car and raced last week at Darlington. It was awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean it's great to see him back as fast as he did get back, especially with the spinal injury that he had. To be able to get back within 2 weeks, that's awesome to see. So, um,
Good for him.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're going to qualifying, and of course, the boy I've always been a fan of, Tyler Reddick, qualifies on the pole. But a little bit of a surprising factor fucking RFK Racing qualifies second and third. Brad takes second in qualifying, and Busher takes third.
Hey
Pretty
man,
pretty surprising result from them Fords.
I've been saying it all year. That team is turning into it's turning into a team to mess with. I mean, it's I would say it's rivaling Penske now with the Ford cars. Um,
Yeah,
just because, I mean, really the only driver that you really kind of talk about with Penske is Ryan Blaney. And then in RFK,
right.
you've got Brad and Busher. And I think I honestly might say now with this season, I'd almost say that RFK is a better Ford racing team than Penske is, just based off of
Damn.
what's happened this season.
Oh God, let's not turn this freaking program into shining Brad Keselowski. I swear to God, I don't want to talk about that, but he has been doing good. He has been doing good, and so is his team. And I think you're right. As much as I hate to say it, I think you're right. Like they have been showing a lot of dominance, especially at those super speedways like we talked about earlier this season. They've
Yep.
been showing a lot of speed, and yeah, Ryan Blaney has been, showing speed here and there, but I almost feel like RFK has been more dominant and consistent,
Yep.
even than Ryan Blaney,
Yep.
their top performer at Penske. So, well, let's get into Darlington, and let's start out because I know, like we said, Tyler Reddick got the pole, and he takes the lead, and of course, Kyle Larson shows strength. He shows his way to, maneuver his way towards the front of the field. And then it seems like it's a recurring theme that Byron and Larson short pit the field. I swear, it's like we say this every fucking week. Like that's what they do. They pit 1 to 2 laps earlier than everybody, and then they end up getting the lead. But Ty Gibbs was able to hold on to the lead until he got loose and kind of skirted up into the wall, allowing Kyle Larson, who I picked for this week, to win stage one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it was I think it was a good stage of racing. I mean, I think it kind of sucks for Ty Gibbs a little bit. I seen the little squiggle that he did to get up and into the wall. I I really think Ty Gibbs is due one of these weeks, and I would hate to be not be the guy that picks him in the pick'em standings. I say it every week that I think Ty Gibbs is due. Um, but, but yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about Larson taking stage one. I mean, the guy's always up
Right.
there, so you know what I mean. No
Yep.
change there.
And then, right. Moving right on to stage two, though, Tyler Reddick, he ends up taking advantage of that number one pit stall that's always important in NASCAR. And
Yep.
he makes it from fourth to first and takes first position at the beginning of stage two and kind of just dominates the stage from there. I think the really only thing to note in this stage is that William Byron, as all the Blaney fan cry babies. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about now. Byron actually kind of did fuck Blaney over because what he did was he took it three wide. He shot it inside where he didn't have any room, and then he
Yep.
forced Truex up into Blaney, which Blaney hit the wall and broke his toe link, and forced Blaney to finish last place in the race.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely an aggressive move by Byron, especially coming down into turn one at Darlington. I mean, that's all those turns at Darlington. Um, I mean, they seem pretty tough and with how you gauge coming in and out of it. Um, I, I mean, Byron had a huge run coming into it, and you never want to lose that momentum if you can avoid it. So, I mean, take your shot. He took his shot underneath and kind of floated back up the track with a lot of speed coming out of turn one, and yeah, just kind of forced him up into the wall. And so it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't think it was intentional by any means. I don't think it was anything to make Blaney wreck. I mean, Blaney's just the bad luck guy of NASCAR. He just fucking just seems to get he seems to get the shaft all the fucking time. So
Yep. That's a good point. Did you see Blaney after he was already wrecked out of the race, like during the caution, kind of run up towards Byron and essentially give him like the middle finger or whatever?
uh-huh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would be pissed off too, but I mean,
He
racing's
had a
racing.
strong
I
car,
Blaine
but it's
Blaney
Blaney.
Blaney Blaney wouldn't have given up that position either. I don't think that run that Byron had. I don't think anybody would have given up that run.
it was aggressive by Byron for sure, I think. Like at Darlington, it's a two wide racetrack, and I think it was a little bit too much by Byron, but I don't know.
Yeah, but
I think I'm on Blaney's side. I think I'm on Blaney's side, to be honest.
we're always talking position, 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 where you need to get position, you need to get position. Byron had a chance to try to go get a position with a good run, and he tried to take it. And obviously sometimes that doesn't work out. You know what I mean? And like I
Yeah.
said, Blaney just somehow always ends up to get the short end of the stick when it comes to those kind of deals. Um,
Yep,
so
it's a
yeah,
good
I don't
point.
know.
So moving on from that, freaking, fiasco. Tyler Reddick really, like, I think stage two showed that Tyler Reddick was the car to beat, which I
Yeah,
know I've said on this podcast so much is that Tyler Reddick has had that kind of car, but
yeah.
he hasn't finished with the race wins for so many races. And the only person that was showing the, like similar strength was take the words out of my mouth, please, Brad Keselowski. Um, on the restarts, like he was the only guy that was showing that kind of like similar strength and speed on the restarts. And but Tyler Reddick does end up winning stage two. And honestly, we had a great battle to start stage three. Keselowski, Larson, and Byron make it three wide, and they're going back and forth. Um, and then Keselowski ends up taking the lead with 67 to go, but Larson loses a left rear and wrecks out, which we'll get into later. Ends up fucking my day over as far as the pick'em standings go. But it starts a great restart with Keselowski, Reddick, and Busher, which ends up being the race. And
Hmm.
I said those three names: Keselowski, Busher, and Reddick. Keselowski was the one of the three that probably shouldn't have won that race, like as far as the dominant cars,
Yeah.
but he ends up doing it. So let's spoil it for him now, Wes. You say it. I can't say it. I can't say it. I can't. I can't.
Well,
I can't say it.
Brad Keselowski finally breaks his 110 winless streak and gets the win at Darlington. Hey man, and you've got everything against Brad. I've got nothing against Brad. Um, and
Sorry.
so I just
Sorry,
think
guys.
it's
Sorry, everybody. It's not. It's not.
this guy's trying to hold back
Doesn't leave a good taste.
some
It does
sickness
not
over
leave
here.
a good taste in my mouth. Anyways, Wesley, you continue. You continue.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I got nothing against Brad. So I mean, seeing him do this with his own team within 3 seasons, just coming out and this season being in what I feel like is the strongest Ford team. Um, you get he finally snaps that 110 winless streak, and um, I think it was a good race for Brad and Busher. There was a point in the race where I thought Busher was only going to help Brad win the race, but then
Yeah,
but then
on that
Busher,
restart, I know what you're talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah, and then but then Busher took the lead and then fell back again, and then it was a Reddick and Keselowski race, and Keselowski finished it out. So yeah.
Well, that was the big deal. Is that Chris Buescher ends up taking the lead, and then Tyler Reddick has a run with about 10 laps to go, and Tyler Reddick makes a little bit too much of an aggressive move and ends up taking both him and Chris Buescher out of the race because he tries to
Hmm.
dive bomb Buescher and then ends up taking them both out.
Yep.
And then, so like you've already said, Brad Keselowski wins, but we have a little bit of drama going down on pit road. And I don't know, because I know you. as a Chastain fan and as a Kyle Busch fan, we're both very accustomed to the pit road drama.
Yep.
And I've never seen a driver so as apologetic as Tyler Reddick was. All Tyler Reddick did was like, "Yep, it's on me. I'm so sorry. It was 100% on me." And he even said like, "I don't give a shit about my car. I'm more concerned about your car, and I am sorry that I ruined your car." And Busher says, "That's all fine and dandy, but I don't have the win. I don't have that sticker on my door. I don't have that win sticker on my door.
Yeah.
It's your apology is nice, but I don't have that." And dude, I mean, personally, I don't know if it's possible, but I gain more respect for both drivers in that interaction because yeah, Tyler Reddick was the reason for the fuck up. Chris Buescher, understandably upset, and I feel like that interaction went as perfect as it could go.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, you always love to see some punches thrown in pit row, but um, I I don't know. I mean, Chris Buescher had obviously had the um um what am I trying to say? He had the right to be as mad as he was. Um, and then Tyler Reddick just owned up to his fuck up. You know what I mean? That's that's all there is to it. I mean, Tyler Reddick messed it up,
You have
and
to respect that, right?
yeah, I mean, at least he's not down there saying that it was all Busher's fault or it was something else's fault. I mean, he's just saying, I fucked up. That's my fault. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I could see where Chris Buescher's coming from, saying that we don't have that winning sticker on the door. I'd be fucking livid too. But I mean, your boss won the race, so how mad can you be?
And I think Bush is gonna get in there. I think so. Like especially if Brad can win a race, Busher, you can win a race. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So fuck. Did we have a great 2 weeks of racing? I mean, we've been waiting for these kind of races. I feel like your redneck boys have been just dying for these kind of races. So it was pretty awesome to see. Let's go on to the power rankings. Let's kind of go through them quickly. Now we have a little bit of a special circumstance because guess what? It's All Star Race weekend, baby. We're in the All Star race. So it's going to be a little different than your typical power rankings, but I'm going to start it off with NASCAR's power rankings. And they dropped Noah Gragson down to 20. So 3 spots where he was from where he was last week. And I don't understand why, because even in their description, they said Noah has had 4 straight top 15s, 5 straight top 20s, but we knock him down because he didn't get his fourth straight top 10.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why are we hating on Noah so much?
I
He's
don't think
been
there's.
very consistent as of late.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that NASCAR likes to go week by week with their rankings, and
Yep.
he's obviously shown that he can do it. So I don't know why they would push him back 3 spots.
Maybe it's just because it's the All Star race, but I don't know. Because we don't have odds on him for this week because he hasn't won a race in the past year, which is like the criteria for making the All Star race. So let's move on to number 17, Joey Logano, who comes in at 1 spot above where he was last week. He had a decent run. Like he was in the top 5 for a bit, but he ends up wrecking out as we were talking about. But his odds show something different. Wes, you're our odds guy. What did
Yeah,
they say for
I
Joey
mean,
Logano?
he's got 9-1 odds this week. Definitely the best odds that we've ever seen this year. Um,
Nine to
especially
one.
yeah. especially being
Joey Logano.
especially being the middle of the pack racer for most of the year. Having 9 to 1 odds. Maybe it's just something about the racetrack that they like Logano. I don't
Right,
know.
right. So, hey, good for Logano fans. Hopefully something happens there. But let's move up to 16, which is Bubba Wallace. He stays um, at 16 this week and doesn't move up or down. He had a top 10 finish last week, which was good for him because he had a 3 race streak without one. But again, he's one of those drivers without a win in the past year, so no odds for him. So he has to race his way in or get voted in. How do you feel about his chances this week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've liked Bubba all year, so I've got nothing against him. So I mean, hopefully he does well this week. Hopefully, hopefully at some point this year they respect him a little bit and move him up a little past 16, maybe up past 15. Maybe swap him and Kyle Busch. You never know.
Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, all right. Let's move on to Chris. Number 15, Christopher Bell in NASCAR's power rankings. Not mine. It's not a biased rankings, but he does have 15 to 2 odds to win this week. So Toyota's looking pretty strong at the All Star race.
Yeah, I mean Christopher Bell. Nothing super great about him really all year. Um, I mean the Kansas race he battled for a little while, but not surprising odds where he's at. So hopefully, hopefully we see him maybe have a little bit better of a race this week.
Well, let's talk about a guy who is going to have a way better race this week. He's racing that Lenovo number 8 Chevrolet. That would be Kyle Busch. I guess I'll just start. He has 16 to 1 odds. I'm gonna take it from you, Wesley. At least this guy. I'm gonna take the odds from you because it might be the best thing I have to say about this driver. He has 16 to 1 odds to win this race. He drops 4 spots in the power rankings because, I mean, I know I talked about how he made it from 20th to 8th in Kansas, but in Darlington, he qualified 11th, and all he did was just, he just fucking fell back, and he finished like 27th, and that's with like guys like Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Chris, ending their race days. He fucking sucked ass at Darlington. And I'm just kind of sick of seeing him do this, but yeah, he did not do good. So I think he deserves to drop these positions. I do, however, have a bone to pick, and I'm gonna request some time to kind of talk about this because I know we always have our problems with NASCAR's power rankings, but obviously I read the Kyle Busch articles a little bit closer, right? And this Pat DiLacola motherfucker goes on and talks about Kyle Busch, and I quote, a near perennial leader in the All Star race, but only a one time winner. Expect Busch to see the front at some point on Sunday before something happens and he misses out on the checkered, if history is any indication. Pat, Kyle's gone through enough, okay? Fuck, I did not like reading that, but I don't know. Hopefully, there's something good to happen at this All Star race, but at the same time, it won't count because we need a points race for Kyle Busch to win. But I wish I could have started this podcast about 10 years ago to tell you about how dominant Kyle Busch was because he was. But let's move on to some other driver who's probably not as dominant or never will be as dominant, but he drives like the number one car or something.
because he's number one. Um,
Oh,
that's the whole point of it. Um, so moving on to 12, it's Ross Chastain, obviously. He's got 18 to 1 odds this week. Hasn't been racing well this last month and a half. Obviously, he's been put in some bad situations with some wrecks. He had a chance at a couple top fives this month, but obviously stuff happens in the races. And unfortunately, he hasn't had a top 10 finish. So um, he's still top 10 in points, though. So we'll see what he can do.
he's been. I feel like we've been talking about it all season. It's that he doesn't have that, you know, dominant finish. He's not finishing in the top 10 every week, but he's finishing 13th to 16th every
Well,
week.
to start the
Like we've been
season, he
talking
started.
about Mr. Consistency.
To start the season, he was finishing top tens, but this last
Yeah.
month and a half, it's been like you're saying, 12 to 13th. So hopefully we start seeing those top
But
10,
let's
top
talk.
five finishes again.
Hopefully we don't. No, I'm just kidding. I know. He deserves that. But let's talk about a guy who finally gets moved down. Ryan Blaney. Finally. I've been saying it for weeks. He gets dropped down to number 11. His season low. I feel like they've been sticking it at number 7 all year, no matter what. No matter if he finishes 23rd or if he finishes 11th. Let's just stick him at number 7. But they drop him down a few spots, and I think it's fair. I'm not a hater of Blaney, but he just hasn't produced this season. So I think it's fair. And then if we were to go on and move up to number 10, I know that guy doesn't have as good of odds to win this race, but Chris Buescher's at number 10. So Wesley. Obviously, Chris Buescher's going to move up after his strong race, but what do those two drivers have as far as odds this week?
So we're looking at Ryan Blaney sitting at 9 to 1, and then Chris Buescher are looking at 14 to 1. So they're still giving Ryan Blaney the edge in the
Ryan
odds.
Blaney's still the favorite?
Yeah, they're still giving him
Wow.
some of the edge in the odds. But like I was saying earlier, I think out of all the Fords, it's definitely Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski that are the top four drivers right now.
Yeah,
So I think it's finally fair that they move Ryan Blaney out of the top 10.
I like it. And then right above him, like you were talking about, Brad Keselowski at number 9 finally breaks that 110 race winless streak. And I think that is enough to deserve him a top 10 spot in the power rankings. What are his odds to
He's
win
looking
this
at
race?
14 to 1. So
Same as
um,
Buescher?
same as Chris Buescher. And I feel like they're always next to each other every week. So I think that those are looking pretty good.
All right, well, let's move on up. Number 8 is Alex Bowman, who hasn't won a race, but who has been very consistent. He's tied for the series lead in top tens this season with 7. Here's the funny thing. So he has the most top tens this season, or he's tied for it, but he's only led 7 laps this season, which is
Yeah,
like,
I just.
how do you do that? How does that work? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I really haven't heard much of Bowman this year. I mean, we were talking about it before the podcast. I mean, I asked you what has Alex Bowman really done this year to be up in the top 10?
Right?
You know, he has a
But
few
apparently
consistent
been
top tens,
pretty
but
decently consistent, right?
yeah,
But he hasn't done anything exciting, I think is what you're saying.
yeah. I
He
mean, you
hasn't
don't really hear
won
his name
or
too much.
competed for a win.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, you just don't hear his name too much very often, and so he's very sneakily in that top 10. So
Well, then if you have to move on to another guy that's not doesn't have any odds for this week, Ty Gibbs. He jumps up 4 spots after his second place finish at Darlington. He needs to race his way in or get voted into the All Star race, but probably deserving of the number 7 spot in the power ranking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've said all season, Ty Gibbs has had a strong car, and I mean, I think he deserves to be up here at number 7. So hopefully he
Yeah,
can make it
not
into the
much
All Star
argument
race.
there, right? I'm sure he will. And then let's go on to number 6, down 2 spots from NASCAR's rankings last week, Chase Elliott. Um, I mean, not much argument here. Obviously, he's had a dominant season. He's won the race, but um, the thing I have about it, like you mentioned earlier, Wesley, is the week to week bias that we see in these NASCAR rankings. Little bit of a spoiler alert, but it's getting, more similar this week. But I feel like, me and you haven't had these week to week jumps, these biases of, you know, Tyler Reddick has a bad race, but again, like Tyler Reddick also dominates a race. Like we're not dropping him 3 spots. We're not dropping Hamlin down to 3 or 4 because he has one bad race.
Yeah,
So that's where I kind of feel like about Chase Elliott. You drop him down 2 spots, but if you were to talk to us a couple of weeks ago, we probably would have had Chase Elliott number 6 anyways.
yeah. I mean, I feel like Chase has been in that 6 to 7 range all season, and I mean, they keep on moving him all up and down number 10, and they're in those top 10 spots, and it's just like you were saying, it's a week to week basis with NASCAR, and it doesn't seem like a power ranking to me when it's week to week. It's the power ranking should be based on your whole season as a whole.
Right.
So yeah, I think he deserves to be at 6. So
I agree with that. What are his odds for this week?
its odds for this week are 10 to 1. So pretty good odds this week.
Pretty good. And before we get off of Chase Elliott, I have to give him some flowers. Hopefully, this gains us a few NASCAR followers since he's the most popular driver. He is the only driver out of this entire season to finish in the top 20 in every race this year.
Yeah, I mean,
That's pretty good. I mean, obviously he hasn't been the most dominant. There's been Denny Hamlin, there's been William Byron, there's been Kyle Larson, but those guys have had bad days. Chase Elliott, top 20 every single race this year. It's pretty good.
well, I mean, when you're not competing for the lead every week, there's no chance of you wrecking out, right? So just had to throw it out there. You tried to
uh,
gain us some NASCAR followers, and I just put a fucking halt to that.
shut it all down. All right. Well, let's move on to number 5 in NASCAR's power rankings. That would be Tyler Reddick. He's up 1 spot from last week. Um, and I think that makes sense. I think we're all expecting him to have a good day at Kansas and Darlington. But he makes his way up to number 5 in the power rankings. No surprise there. What do his odds have to say about that?
His odds are looking 12 to 1, so not the best out of the
Oh,
not the best out of the top 10 in the power rankings. So yeah, no, I like Tyler Reddick here. I like Tyler Reddick at 5. The 4 drivers ahead of him, I feel like have had better cars all season. Have had better seasons all
right.
around. Yeah, I like Tyler Reddick here, and I like his odds this week at 12 to 1.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Let's bust out the 4 drivers before him. Martin Truex at 4. He hasn't won a race yet, but he's been more dominant than the guys behind him, I think. And then The three drivers ahead of him, I mean, there's no question. William Byron's won 3 races.
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin's won 3 races. And now Kyle Larson, after Kansas, by 1/1000th of a fucking second, wins his second race and still comes in at number one in the power rankings, which I think is deserving. Like I told you, Wes, I know we talked about it on this pod. Once Kyle Larson finishes those races, I'll give him the number one spot, and it didn't take long. I think he does deserve that spot as the number one driver in NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it every week. I mean, that just Kyle Larson's always
Yep.
up in the front. He's always up in the front. He's always up there to be able to compete for a win. Obviously, there's those few outlier races where pit crew messes up or something and he falls back. But I mean, if Kyle Larson's got a good car and his pit crew comes to play, then he's usually up there fighting for the lead every week.
Always got a chance. Now, I hate to say this, but I agree with NASCAR for quite a bit of my power rankings. So here you go, couch potato fans. Now, it is 2 weeks, but I will say after 1 week, I was going to give Kyle Larson the number one spot. After last week, after that finish in Kansas, Kyle Larson deserves that one spot. Now, I don't think there's any debate on the 1 through 3 spots. I don't understand why we've had a debate. It's Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, or William Byron's like championship to win at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any debate on that. Now, if Martin Truex shows up and starts to win some races, we might have more of a discussion. Same with Tyler Reddick. Same with Chase Elliott. But I don't think anybody else has a chance this week or this year. Now, I do agree with like 7 through 10, I'll say. Ty Gibbs at 7, Bowman at 8, Brad at 9, Busher at 10, and you're welcome, Wesley. I'll give Chastain a little bit of an edge over Blaney in the power rankings. I'll give Chastain 11, and I'll give Blaney 12. And I'll go Chase Briscoe 13, just kind of that consistency bias. And I'll give Kyle Busch 14, which is disgusting. It's disrespectful to the NASCAR community to have him that low. But
Whatever you say,
I'll
buddy.
finish it with Christopher Bell with 15, Bubba with 16. And now, here's my biggest discrepancy with NASCAR. Noah Gragson still deserves to be up there. Um, he's had a very strong run. I know it hasn't been like great, but they were like diminishing him for not finishing in the top 15. But he's been in the top 20 like the last 6 races or something. So I'm going to give Noah Gragson 17, Joey Logano 18, Daniel Suarez 19, and Josh Berry 20 for getting the top 12, for getting the top 5 last week.
Yeah, I mean, not much to argue with there. I mean, really the only ones that matter to me are those top five, and I mean, like you're saying, those top three drivers are it's their year to
In
win.
a
It's
class of
their
their own, right?
yeah, it's I mean, Denny Hamlin still hasn't won one. Um, maybe it's finally his fucking year. Maybe he can
No,
finally
no,
win one and
no.
retire.
No. for all of NASCAR, for all of NASCAR fandom, please no. Don't let Denny Hamlin win a championship, please. I'll take Ross Chastain winning a championship over Denny Hamlin.
Well, that's a given.
Oh, good point. Good point. You got anything crazy happening? this week in the All Star race?
Not, not really. I mean, I think it'll be a fun race. I mean, last year it was a little boring. It's definitely a small track.
I'm
So
not a fan of North Wilkesboro, bro. Not a fan.
it's not as well. The Clash wasn't too bad this year. The Clash was actually pretty good this year.
I'm,
Uh,
but Charlotte Motor Speedway is a classic track, and that's where the All Star race has been. Mile and a half. I don't, I know North Wilkesboro. We'll have to get into it a little bit later, but I just don't think it's as fun of a track. I don't remember it being that fun of a race last year.
it wasn't. I mean,
Like,
last
didn't
year it was.
Larson just run the inside line
Yeah,
the whole race and fucking win
Larson
it?
had like almost a. I think he almost had like a 7 second, 8 second lead on second place at one point.
It's
It's
not.
not a. It's
I
not a
don't know.
fun. It's not a fun track unless somebody's going to be up there competing. I mean, lap traffic was no problem to Larson. It was just. It was a pretty boring race.
Yeah, and I get the appeal of North Wilkesboro and everything, but we've had some really classic moments in the All Star race. I mean, talk about the Bush brothers. Not a lot of people might remember this, but I'll always remember it. Kurt Busch, he was racing Miller Lite at the time, and he was in a gold Miller Lite car, and Kyle Busch ended up wrecking him out of it in the All Star race, wrecked them both out, and it was one of one of the most iconic wrecks or the most iconic finishes in NASCAR history, or at least the All Star race. And it was just fun. It's just a fun race because there's a lot that can happen at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and there's not a lot that can happen in North Wilkesboro besides the moonshine. Uh, throwback to the roots of NASCAR. I guess there's some moonshine hubs that can be found under the grandstands of North North Wilkesboro. There you
There you
go.
go.
Did you hear about that?
I did. I did see about that. Um, I think it's pretty cool, but like finding them at what was it like a sinkhole or something in the stands and
Mm-hmm.
found the
A
secret room underneath them.
moonshine hub or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was pretty cool to see. I mean, obviously everybody knows that's how NASCAR got its start was by the Shiners. So yeah, that's a pretty cool little piece of history to just fall on.
Right. And I me, being newer into NASCAR, at least the last 20 years, I didn't understand as much, but I wanted to look more into it, and I saw that it was a 700 square foot chasm under the stadium, and what it showed was like the hub or whatever. What do you call it? The cave, the Moonshine Cave. Is that what it's called?
I don't know for sure.
The Moonshine, yeah, cave, I think. Yeah, so it was under the stands or whatever, and that's where it was found under. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about that. And what I kind of found was that North Wilkesboro was a hub for the moonshining, like I don't know if you want to call them community, but North Wilkesboro had a reputation for being a hub for moonshine production. And actually, the track itself was a hub for the testament of moonshine production and the roots back and forth. Um, so it's pretty cool to see. And what they used North Wilkesboro as a hub for was to like show the skills of the moonshine runners. And so there's a lot of history on the track, I guess, as far as the moonshine goes. So I tried to do as much research as I could on that. Obviously, I don't understand the 1940s and 50s of the history of the NASCAR, but as far as that goes, but I don't know. Like I told you before, I hope that the All Star race is good. It was really good at Charlotte, and I don't think it has been as good since then. I mean, fuck. Didn't I just send you a clip of Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson battling in like the All Star Open in 2016,
Yeah,
like at Charlotte?
along with
Ryan
Blaney, right?
Blaney. Yeah, and I just think it's a better racetrack. So I'm I like the history. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it, but I don't know. It's NASCAR, baby. So we gotta appreciate what we have. We gotta love what we have. And Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain will win a race this year. I believe it.
Hey, don't group Ross Chastain in there with Kyle Busch. I don't need that. I don't need that bad juju.
Hey, 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 man! This dude has 60 plus wins. I hope Ross Chastain gets there. I hope. Nah, it's always unbiased, very fun opinion from your redneck boys. Appreciate you guys for joining us. And guess what? We'll see you after the All Star race, and we'll get back into the regular season. Wesley, thank you as always for joining us.
Yep. Good to talk to
We'll see
everybody.
you
Good to
guys.
talk to you. We'll see you guys later.